We need to begin with a roll call.
Commissioners Gorick,
Here.
Cotton, Hesner,
Here.
Heidner,
Here.
Mulcrone,
Here.
Chairman Morris.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. This evening, we have three public hearings on our agenda. The first being case 21-05, which is a petition requesting to amend the existing special use permit granted by ordinance 2013-15, allowing for restaurants serving alcoholic beverages in various locations within what I will euphemistically refer to as the Hawthorne Mall property. With respect to that one, who's going to speak and testify on behalf of the petitioner?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I am going to begin and maybe finish. My name is Hal Frank. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Meltzer, Pertil, and Stell.
Okay, if anyone's going to also speak, we'd ask everybody to be sworn in at the same time, just for expedience.
We have the pleasure of being joined by Mr. John Michelle of Centennial Real Estate.
Okay, we'd ask you to raise your right hands and swear or affirm that this testimony you're about to give before this commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth.
Yes.
Yes.
With that, you're on.
Thank you.
Okay.
The primary rule we have is that since this is being shown to the masses on television, we ask that you speak from one of the microphones.
Okay.
I don't see the portable one there, but that shouldn't be a
I don't
problem.
think it is, but I think it's picking me up.
Yep.
So thank you again. What we're here on is a request that's pretty straightforward. Some or all of you may recall that about 7-8 years ago, Westfield brought forward a big renovation plan for the Hawthorne Mall. I am representing Centennial Real Estate Company, the current owner of the mall. And when Westfield came through, the village adopted a series of ordinances in furtherance of its improvement at that time, additions, rehabilitations, and things like that. And so the village adopted the ordinance that's referred to here, 2013-015. And what that was or is a special use ordinance to allow for restaurants serving alcoholic beverages to be located in certain parts of the mall. And I believe Mr. Atkinson has put up on the screen the areas. Do you have are those the current areas?
The clicker will show you
You're assuming I know how to do this. These are the areas that were approved. The village ordinance, you will no doubt recall, your zoning ordinance has a unique provision that says restaurants, while they're permitted uses in the B1 zoning district, which is what the mall is located in, if the restaurant is going to serve alcoholic beverages, you'd have to get a special use permit. So there's a zoning element involved in the code contemplated. So what Westfield did back then was ask for sort of a pre-approval for certain areas within the mall where they could locate restaurants that would be serving alcoholic beverages without saying anything about all the other regulations and requirements that would have to be met, meaning, in other words, they would all have to be met, whether it would be fencing of outdoor areas that serve alcohol, as is noted in your staff report, whether it's going through the obvious liquor licensing requests, those would all still need to be, all the site plan approval and whatever the village ordinances, the municipal code otherwise require would still all have to be complied with. But to get the zoning element out of the way, because as you know, it always requires time and notice and all those kinds of things, what Westfield did back then was they got this pre-approval, I'll call it, in effect to make it like, this is not exactly the right term, but you all will know what I mean when I say to make it like shovel ready for a restaurant serving alcohol. Again, whoever comes in with a new restaurant, whatever has come in, they still have to go through the liquor licensing, the permits, all that kind of stuff. So as everybody knows, so this is what was approved at the time for the mall. This is in the ordinance right now. Isn't that the that's the movie theater? There's a movie theater. Where's my Dave and Buster's? That's here too, wasn't it? Or
Here's David Buster.
there. Yeah, I see it. I thought it was so much bigger when I went into it.
It's bigger on the second level.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So what we're asking for now is to expand the area. Everybody's aware of what is now under construction and underway with Hawthorne Row. The old Sears site, you know, the Sears has been demolished, and this site work is being done right now. So there are really three elements that we wanted to talk about that we're asking for approvals to this evening. We're asking to amend the ordinance to add to those prior exhibits I just showed you, this exhibit, to add these areas. And it really breaks down to three areas of import that we're talking about. In the center is the proposed new multifamily retail development, which is, as I just said, what you've been hearing about in prior meetings, the village board is hearing about, and the major component of the first phase of the Hawthorne redevelopment project. And so that's the multifamily over the new retail. So we're asking for those areas that are going to be the new retail, the lower level, to be pre-approved for restaurants serving alcoholic beverages. Not that obviously that whole area is going to be restaurants, because we don't know yet where they're going to go. So we're trying to get kind of a global approval for those areas. You'll also see to the right of that, to the right on Milwaukee Avenue, the three outlots that have already been approved by the village. We're working right now on getting that plat recorded so that there will be three outlots there. And I know a lot of folks are hoping that, you know, we get some restaurants there. And so we've included in our request those three outlots for pre-approval. And then the last one is really the one that you recently had in front of you, which is on the former Carson Perry Scott parcel, which is now going to be the Sleep Number. So it's not going to be serving alcohol at the Sleep Number, but we wanted to include it now since that plat has been recorded. That is an existing lot of record right now. And it is going to be occupied by Sleep Number, but we wanted to include it for down the road. If forever Sleep Number left, it would already be known that a restaurant could go right in there too, which if Sleep Number ever went out, you know, the village would want to make sure that something like that happened as soon as possible too. So that's why we've included that on this. There's no immediate plans, obviously, for a restaurant with alcohol going there. So, you know, that's the sum and substance of our request. I did submit a letter that identified why we think the standards for the special use that were originally approved are still being met by this request. John is here on behalf of ownership to answer any questions you might have, and that's the sum and substance of our proposal.
Okay.
Are the other outlets on 45 and 60 there? I mean,
21.
On 60?
21 and 60, not your property.
Correct. Like where Uncle Julio's is, those are not owned by Centennial.
Why not ask for like the whole mall?
Well, we're just, I mean, we could have, but we didn't.
Okay, just curious.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, we're just tacking on, you know, that's a question that probably would have been good, you know, when Westfield was up here. But we're just trying to tack on what they approved. And the big issues back then, of course, were the theater and Dave and Buster's and, you know, everything else they ended up doing. And I think everybody knows, you know, that our client doesn't own the JCPenney site and we don't own the Macy's site. They don't own. I mean, they don't own. I don't own anything.
I have one question. It might be directed towards Mike. The open area just east of the new entrance to the mall, that whole area is going to be more or less special event space. So why wouldn't that be designated for allowing alcohol sales, you know, by kiosk or by cart or something like that, so that each time a special event came through, they didn't have to come in for a special use?
Would you serve
The
alcohol?
outside area.
Would you serve alcohol from the terrace in line with a special event? Let me ask that.
This is a John question. But I think that's a good question, because we did come before you recently for an indoor kiosk where this was the issue.
So I do think that's a good question, and maybe that's one that we should bring back separately, independent of this issue. We don't want to tangle the referendum on exterior outdoor alcohol sales with the actual need to get this stuff, as Hal put it, shovel-ready so that we can move our leasing forward. But I do think,
Your choice.
I think it's a good question, and we probably will be back before you with that at a future date.
I mean, we could do it now.
I think it's
There's
a-
no reason why we
Well,
couldn't.
let me just kind of work
Yeah.
through some things.
Okay.
First of all, with the liquor and licensing ordinance provides for licensing for special events, right? So the zoning code establishes a special use permit for restaurants serving alcohol. So I don't think we're going to have a restaurant on the terrace serving alcohol. Correct. So, but I think we have it covered. If you guys have those special events, and we anticipate you having those, you would still be required to come before the Liquor and Licensing Commission for a liquor license in connection with a special event. And, or you could even do it like other properties have done, where you have a schedule of events, 18 or 20 events through the year, and you come to the Liquor and Licensing Commission once for approval of all those events that are programmed on a yearly basis. It's worked well in the past with other properties. I think it would work well for you guys as
Yeah,
well.
we'll do that.
Well, can I ask a question with that? So you say 20 events. You may not have all those events filled. Okay, so it may be scheduled dates. So could they come before the commission, not us, for a series of dates so that you could fill last minute a date, an entertainer, some special, entertainer for a Friday night or a Saturday, but you already have that date approved for the sale of beverages like that?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's something that we should pursue. I think that's a great suggestion.
Okay.
Commissioner Hesner, were you talking about the space where Sears was attached, the plaza?
Correct.
Okay.
The
In
open
between that and
area
the new
where the terraces go up, where the big retaining wall is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Just out of curiosity, if you don't have to name names, are there any potential tenants for the 3 outlots along Milwaukee?
Yes, there are.
Good.
And we're working
great
to get, to cultivate the right tenants too,
Right.
not just ready tenants, but the tenants that will help us execute the vision for the asset that we have.
That's good news, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, I note that there has been public notice provided, and we received no responses, is that correct?
That's correct.
And we also have the section 18.3 of the zoning ordinance elements described in a letter dated May 17th, 2021. This is a public hearing, and therefore, if anyone in the public wishes to comment or provide testimony with respect to this request, this would be the opportunity to do so. Okay, seeing no great rush to the podium to do so, we can close public comment. Any other comments or questions by the commission? Do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. It's very dramatic.
He listened, he went to the
That's
microphone.
right, yeah. Therefore, we have a standing motion at this commission to recommend approval, and therefore will be a motion to recommend approval of a special use permit to allow restaurants at Hawthorne Mall to serve alcoholic beverages at various locations as noted on, what are we calling this? Exhibit
EX4.
EX4, subject to the 4 conditions in the staff packet: receipt of a liquor license, receipt of all required licenses from the village and the Lake County Health Department prior to issuance of a final certificate of occupancy. It is limited to this exhibit and compliance to all other ordinances. We need a second for that motion, please.
Second.
Any discussion with respect to that motion? Okay, then we need a roll call.
Commissioners Hesner,
Yes.
Heidner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
All right, it's
Thank you.
approved to the village board, and it will go there.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Do we do this one next? Okay. Okay. Next, we have case number 21-01, which is a petition seeking approval to amend the zoning classification of property located in the South Lake Industrial Center at 634 South Milwaukee Avenue, including the former Forge Club and 2 adjacent parcels, for reclassification from B1 General Business to BP Business Park, approval of an amendment to ordinance 2020-85, authorizing revisions to the special use permit, allowing for a light industrial building, granting certain variations to the zoning ordinance and sign code, preliminary and final site plan approval, preliminary and final architecture plan approval, preliminary and final landscape plan approval, and preliminary and final plat of subdivision approval. With respect to this one, who's going to speak on behalf of the petitioner?
Good evening, John Pagliari with Panatoni.
Hey, we'd ask you, anybody else want to speak with you or no?
No,
You're all alone. Okay, we ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that this testimony you're about to give before this commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth.
I swear.
Okay. With that, you are on, you probably heard before, the primary rule we have is you need to speak from a microphone.
Okay, thank you for having me. Let's see, we are Panatoni Development Company. We bought the Darling Farm last year, and we are quickly putting up buildings over there. And we had another 5-acre piece that was adjacent to Milwaukee, really kind of too narrow of a piece to do anything with on its own. So we are under contract to purchase the 2 pieces adjacent to it, one being the 5-acre Forge property, and the other being a 3.5-acre outlot from Chuck Lamphir of Glycogen. So right now, we're scheduled to close this summer, and we're here tonight to seek the final approval for the rezoning to business park for this light industrial building. And, you know, we've put a pretty good little site plan together. You know, one thing we did was, we did pick up that piece from Chuck Lamphir to the north, which, you know, we really didn't have to have, but it allowed us to get access back to Corporate Woods Parkway, not just leaning on Milwaukee Avenue in and out. So that really, you know, makes our building that much of a better building. Price wasn't cheap, but, you know, you gotta, want to dance, you gotta pay the band, right? So you have to making sure everything's right when you put these spec buildings up, because they're, you know, it's a big investment on our part for these buildings, and we want to make sure they have enough cars and truck access to lease these buildings quickly. So you see before you a landscape plan, site plan. Basically, the building's going to be very similar to the other 4 buildings on the Darling Farm approved. Okay,
No,
check.
no, other one.
This
There you
one.
go. Yep.
Okay. So that's the landscape plan I've clicked upon here. It's a pretty good little site plan of the property. You see we heavily landscaped the perimeter. You know, one thing, working with Mike and Dave Brown on the staff, you know, we flipped the building so the docks face south, you know, really because we're on the back end of the Lifetime Fitness building. But they have their back end to us too. They have their trash enclosures and truck access back there too. So, but the area to the east towards Milwaukee is their pool. And so we basically left a bigger green space over there to beef up with plant material, just to, you know, screen that from view. So, and then the ponds to the north would be, you know, very attractive landscape ponds, giving us our access back to Corporal Woods Drive. So, you know, I don't know if you guys have been out to the Darling Farm, but we don't fool around. You know, we kind of come in and do our thing and keep going. So this is just kind of the 5th building of that 4-building plan that will fit in very nicely. Let me see if I have this is the elevation of the building. We added a little more glass to this building just because of the Milwaukee Road frontage. And, you know, we think it's a pretty attractive building. Might be the most attractive of the 5 out there. We think we'll do very well in this building. Let's see, these are just more elevations. Yeah, so, you know, we're very happy to be here. We're working with staff very well to this point. It's been almost a year now, and, you know, we're just keep pushing along. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Will there be a berm along Milwaukee Avenue?
Milwaukee, you know, probably not. You know, there is a green space there, which we have landscaped pretty heavily along Milwaukee. We do have a curb cut there on the south end of the project. You know, there's not a lot of room there. Maybe they can get a 2 or 3 foot high berm there, potentially. But, you know, we usually leave the berms for covering the truck courts and truck docks, things like that. You know, we think that elevation is pretty good looking elevation, you know, from the street. So we didn't focus too heavily on that, though there is some pretty heavy landscaping over there. I don't think there's a berm or fence.
In the exits onto Milwaukee Avenue directly, will trucks go in and out? I mean, will trucks go out of there as well?
Yes, that's what we're showing is a 3/4, which is a right in, right out, and a left in, so you don't have a left out. And that was really kind of decided with Dave Brown and IDOT over the years. And they've actually approved, you know, even a larger one, but we kept it to 3/4 per staff's recommendation.
And do you have enough acceleration room there for a truck pulling out on Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think so. You know, there's not a left out. So that was the big thing for them, where you'd have to get past the oncoming traffic from the north. So to get to the right lane and out, I mean, they're gonna, you know, trucks aren't that quickly moving, but they do have the option of going out onto Corporal Woods Parkway. I think anyone certainly wanting to go north is gonna have to go to Corporal Woods Parkway and go to the light at Milwaukee. You know, we see that more as kind of a inbound.
And this is a 4-lane cross-section of Milwaukee, right?
Milwaukee, maybe 5. I know it's at least 4. You know, I think there's a turn lane at the Lifetime, for sure. There's a left turn lane at both lights. Maybe it squeezes down to 4 in between, but at both lights, north and south of us, it's 5-lane cross-section. 5 in front of us, yeah. So we like to plan a lot, you know, we don't try to jam, you know, 5 pounds of stuff in a 4-pound bag. By picking up that extra 3.5 acres from Chuck to the north, it really let us, you know, open the site up a little bit more and have certainly more green space and not jam a building in without the proper cars and trucks.
So, were you done?
And from what I could tell, all your trees will be new, correct? You're
New, yes.
tearing down.
Yep.
That's it.
mhm.
So, you know, the really nice thing about the corporate woods is that the entrances were really designated only on the major thoroughfares, and we didn't have right in or right outs, kind of disrupting traffic, disrupting the look. And I think this is just, I don't understand the need for this, since all the other buildings within the corporate woods utilize the ring roads.
Right.
So I'm completely not supportive of introducing a right in, right out on Milwaukee Avenue. It's just gonna invite all that truck traffic to be right near the outdoor amenities of Lifetime. And and you cannot accelerate a truck, you know, cars are traveling 45, 50 miles an hour right there. There's no way that's not gonna cause an issue with just regular traffic. And so I'm wondering why ask for the right in, right out when every other development within the entire corporate woods uses the ring roads?
Well, every other development there isn't on Milwaukee. We're the only development on Milwaukee Avenue. So, you know, you might as well utilize it if you can, instead of keeping.
No, there's other developers on Milwaukee.
In
And
Corporate
on
Woods?
Fifth
Sure, but if you're too close to the intersection, IDOT won't approve it. So IDOT is going to approve this because we're more than 500 to 700 feet from an
Well, I'm suggesting
intersection.
you don't have it at all. and you
No,
use
I
the
get that.
Ring road.
Yeah, I think it diminishes the value of our building by not having that right in, right out there.
Wouldn't that wouldn't you say then that your other 4 buildings are diminished then as well?
Well, they are what they are. So,
So why couldn't this one be what it is?
because it's the only one on Milwaukee.
Okay, that's,
Well,
It does have a deceleration lane, so they can get off.
right, we're adding a decel lane.
It's just the onward traffic. to the south.
The outbound south, right. And you basically come up to a light within 400 or 500 feet at Lifetime, the Lifetime entrance.
I mean, my only other comment is architecturally is that south corner of the building is highly visible based on the height and proximity of Milwaukee. So any northbound traffic and people utilizing Lifetime will definitely see that corner. I
Right.
think you should employ the same articulation and architecture that you have on the east elevation and the north elevation and bring that around the corner, at least to where those truck bays are, just so that corner is as nice as the side that's facing Milwaukee, because everything's in 3D. It's not 2D planar like this.
Right, the back of the building is the warehouse space, and most warehouse guys are, that's why we put clear story windows up higher. Most warehouse guys don't want you peeking into their warehouse and seeing what's going on in there, just because they have high valuable equipment or high valuable commodities in there that they don't want to be seen. So that's typically why we don't have a lot of glass on a low level in the warehouse portion. The office is in the front and the warehouse is in the back. And the front of this building is the north side where we're showing the glass at. So that's,
Yeah, I understand that, but if you look at the corner of the east elevation, there's a different kind of architectural articulation on that corner. But then when you go to the south side, you kind of stopped it. So if you did some kind of, same kind of the color bands, the vertical elements, just to kind of tie that corner into the east side, that might, make it more, pleasing as for northbound traffic and people who are utilizing, Lifetime.
right. Sure, we can certainly add some glass to you're talking about the southeast corner of the building.
It doesn't have to be windows, it just can look like glass, but nobody can see it.
Or paint can look like glass, to mimic that.
Okay, anybody else?
How many tenants do you anticipate in this building?
Hard to say. It's 165,000 feet. We pretty much put in 3 storefronts, one in each corner, one in the middle. So if I had to guess, anywhere between 1, 2, and 3. That doesn't much help, but, it can really, we like to be flexible, kind of all things to all users. And if I had to guess, I'd guess 1 or 2, probably. But we usually put that third entrance in the middle just to break up the elevation of the building.
Then, if that's the case, why are you requesting only 2 tenants on the sign, not 3?
Pardon me?
Why are you requesting only 2 tenants on the sign as a variance rather than 3?
Or more.
Or more, right?
Or more, yeah. I mean, maybe we should have put 3 on there, but
No, let's do that.
you want to do that? Go 3? It
no.
won't be more than 3.
Let's not limit it to 3. Let's say, this building is large enough, it could have 6 tenants. Okay? So let's just not limit the number of tenants for those 2 signs.
Fine. Great by me.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah,
Because, first of all, it is finite. It's not gonna be more than like 6 or
Right,
5 or
right.
4. But let's not limit it to 2, because then you'd have to come back and say.
Sure.
Gee, I need approval to put
Right,
more than 2
right.
tenants into this building. Okay? So,
Right.
Talking about the same size sign then.
it's same size sign.
Yeah, you're talking about the monument sign out
Yeah,
front.
same size sign. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%.
Okay, now, while I have this,
Yeah,
the south, the area that borders the pool,
maybe.
maybe that berm could really have some more landscaping on it, but make sure that it's spaced appropriately so that when it grows up, it's a decent tree.
Right, we do show a berm there.
Yeah, I know, I'm not worried about the berm. The berm's fine, but let's look at some, evergreen trees there so that, but spaced enough so that when they get big.
They can grow,
they're-
yeah, without
they can
killing
grow,
each other.
yeah, Without impeding the growth, okay? So those were actually my 2 comments, and on the north, I think the east elevation's great, okay? I don't think you need that much landscaping in front of this building to Milwaukee Avenue.
Right.
I think it looks nice. So.
Thank you.
Whatever, I guess you work out with the landscape architect in the village. But don't overdo it there.
Don't overdo it, but definitely screen that pool.
Yeah, screen the pool
Right. No, no,
and add more
for sure.
signs.
Totally agree.
For both.
For both, yeah.
So, back to screening the pool, right now from the Lifetime deck, the Forge Club is completely visible. So based on this landscape plan and the overlay of the building, the berm is really only where the outdoor, little entertainment hub thing for the deck
And
is,
Jeff,
right?
the berm's only 3 feet high.
Yeah. I'm just, it doesn't extend past that way. I just didn't know what kind of trees are further along
It's just gonna take, it's gonna take 10 years
to screen it.
for some decent trees to grow. Let's just space them enough so that they can turn out to be really good trees versus grow into each other and have flat sides and,
And they have some decent trees over there too, Lifetime.
Sure.
On that side.
sure.
So that helps. But I totally agree with what you were saying.
Anybody else? In your description, and by looking at the site plan, or what's up the landscape plan, there's currently 20 docks on this. With an accommodation for an additional 14, that's 34. What do you really envision going in this building that's going to require 34 docks?
We never know. You know, we always, again, we're trying to be all things to all people, and basically 34 is the max docks we can do per just geometry of the building. Those are 12-foot panels we put up, and basically you can put a dock door, 9 by 10 dock door in each 12-foot panel. Not where the man doors are, but the rest of them maxed out would be 34.
And they'd all be on the south side of the building.
Correct.
I mean-
Yeah, that's the only area where the trucks can maneuver.
That's talking about a pretty significant amount of truck traffic then, in and out of this site, if you had 34.
Potentially,
dock
you know,
or-
sometimes you have more docks and they have less traffic because they'll sit there. You know, they'll sit there overnight and they'll, you know, empty them in the morning, go around all day, till the next morning they send them out. You know, so with having more docks, you're doing less jacking of the trucks sometimes. It depends. But we don't anticipate using that much. We just wanted to show you what the maxed out
Okay.
size could be.
This is not so much a comment for you that you can certainly respond, but more to the commission and to Mike. I know we've had discussions before with trucks and overnight parking of trucks and how they're visible and how they're screened and, you know, things that they can't idle overnight and things like that. How is 20, much less 34 potential, you know, in-use docks kind of work in that regard? Was that, you know, vague enough for you? Yes.
The number of dock doors on this building are similar to the number of dock doors on the other buildings as far as South Lake Industrial
Right.
Center. I think
Okay.
in conversations with the petitioner, what they're trying to do is to allow as much flexibility for leasing.
Yeah.
They could, when this building was first getting designed, they were talking to a single user.
Mm-hmm.
That might be changing now, and it could be 4 users, or it could be 2. But the idea of these type of buildings is flexibility for leases, not only for the initial leases, but future leases. So from staff's perspective, we think it's highly unlikely that 32 dock doors will be used at the same time. It's not impossible, but we think that that's unlikely.
If this were to be a distribution center, it wouldn't be unusual at all to have 32 trailers dropped there.
Right.
Now, they wouldn't all have a cab with them. I mean, very often, and I use Rust-Oleum as an example, we have a massive distribution center in Kenosha, and you drop the trailers, and then you have people moving them in and out. We don't see a lot of truck traffic there, but when you drive by there, there's a ton of trailers there, and they drop them and they load the trailer. I mean.
And I'm
you could
familiar with that
conceivably-
building up in Kenosha.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big 600,000-foot building,
Yeah.
really kind of a different
It's a little
building.
bit bigger than yours.
And-
But my point is, it's all the dock doors are really on one side.
Yeah, but they also have trailer parking in that building too.
Yes.
So our truck court's 130 feet in the back. There's no area for the truck to park back there away from the building. Where the building you're referring to is 185-foot of trailer, so they have the 130 maneuvering, then they have a 55-foot area to park overnight away from the building.
Sure.
So it's
But-
different.
And these are at grade, these aren't the kind of truck recess that go into the ground?
They're 4 foot below finished floor of the building. So the truck dock backs in, if this is the floor of the building,
there.
if I'm standing on the floor, the truck dock backs right in here, and your forklift goes from your warehouse floor to your truck.
So then, Mike, it's really a question, I don't even know how, I turn to the people to the right and the left of me. If that's the case, and if, I'll call it the worst case, but I don't mean it that way. In the worst case scenario, you've got 20 to 34, at least trailers sitting there. What is the view before we get to 10 years out when it's fully screened from Milwaukee by trees? And how do you approach or address that?
Well, the view from, well, if you're working from west to east, the view is going to be from the back, what, about 75% of the linear width of your building will be adjacent to the back of Lifetime Fitness, which is.
And Lifetime's someplace out here, down here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about 172 feet from this wall, building to building.
So then,
And then you get to a point where there's a certain number of dock doors, maybe somewhere in this, so could be 3 depressed loading docks, and then the at-grade loading door, that would be, somewhere in there would be adjacent to the pool, as you're working from west to east.
so if you're on Milwaukee, driving obviously northbound with my sophisticated geometry, you're talking about something like that to see it?
Yep.
And is there a way to address that?
Well,
Because most of, I think somebody pointed out, most of Corporate Woods not all that visible from Milwaukee. Yeah.
yeah. The berm in the lower right-hand corner with the landscaping was what we encouraged to get as much screening as possible. We would never consider loading docks on the north side. In fact, I think the original plan
The original
had them
plan showed on the north
and
side.
we had them turn the building 180 degrees in an effort to better hide the loading docks. Because if they're on the north side and you're going south on Milwaukee, it would be almost impossible to screen them. That's all you'd see.
Right, you
with
wouldn't miss
loading
them.
dock.
Right.
If you didn't have the right in, right out, you could fully berm that and screen that with landscaping.
It's true. Yes.
I really don't think traveling at 45 to 50 miles an hour, you're gonna really focus on that elevation. And if you're gonna see anything, you're gonna see Lifetime Fitness, because that is infinitely more interesting than the side of one of these large buildings. So I would say, and if these vehicles are gonna park overnight, honestly, even though Lifetime is a 24-hour facility, that north elevation of Lifetime is dramatically uninteresting. So I would say that this is really not, it's more of a non-issue. And specifically, there are no residential properties in that area. And that has been a primary concern of ours with some of these other facilities, because, cars or trucks idling, at 3 or 4 in the morning, sometimes it can be, loud enough to hear. But as far as visual access from northbound cars going on Milwaukee Avenue, I just don't see it as being an issue.
Well, what's the lighting on the south side of the building projected to be?
The what?
The lighting?
There's basically wall packs on the building, so they light the truck court. They're, 1.5 foot candle typically, or less.
And it doesn't look like there's anything,
There's no poles.
there's no poles or anything.
There's no poles. It's all light packs on the building, wall packs we call them. You don't want to light it up like a used car lot, and you want to, enough stumble lighting, we call it, so you don't stumble.
Right. Okay, anybody else?
A comment about, my guess is they're gonna maintain this building very well. If some of you may recall, when the truck terminal came before us on Butterfield, we were concerned about the way that would look, and if any of you have driven by that, it looks terrible. The landscaping is shabby, the fence is not maintained very well, and that is really noticeable to the point that it draws your attention to it. And that can be seen from residents too. So, I get that it'd be nice if we didn't see it, but again, you're going 45 miles an hour, and architecturally, it's a nice-looking building.
Right.
So,
I think so too. You're mostly going to see the building, especially coming from the north, you're going to see the building, you're barely see into the truck court, because like you said, that Lifetime building's fairly close to it on the south side.
I like the building, and I like the recommended improvements to the east elevation. I am concerned about the right out without an acceleration lane. I feel that that's asking for accidents. It's looking for accidents, and I'm very concerned about that.
Well, IDOT hasn't fully approved it yet, we're in for IDOT approval right now, so, like to see what they have to say, for sure about that.
Hey, Mike, what have you seen in the past with IDOT with things like the potential of trucks moving into traffic? Do they take that into consideration, correct?
They will, and I haven't had an experience with this type of use exiting right onto Milwaukee Avenue or Town Line or that type of a highway. Right now, I mean, from what we've heard, they're not going to require the acceleration lane turning right. The closest example I can give is, it's a different use, but it was farther north on Milwaukee Avenue between what was then Jason's Deli and on the border. They came forward for an access road that ultimately they didn't install. IDOT approved a deceleration lane, but not an acceleration lane as part of that proposal. Different use, though.
Yeah,
So I'm not sure
those are
that.
cars.
Well,
Yeah, they're cars and they're restaurants, not a warehouse or distribution facility. So it's not a good example, but it's the closest
No, and
thing
the
I
problem
have.
you're gonna have with a semi that's fully loaded, 45,000 pounds or whatever, its ability to accelerate is greatly diminished when it's fully loaded as opposed to when it's empty. And is there an opportunity for an acceleration lane between this right turn and the stoplight that's 500 to 700 feet away? Is there a turning lane when you approach that stoplight that goes right?
There is.
Yeah. Yep. Yep,
Could,
yep,
could it
there
be
is.
extended that this would then be somewhat of an acceleration lane as a compromise?
I'm sorry, along the signalized intersection?
Well, no, meaning this, when you turn right, could there be an acceleration lane up to the signal,
Up to the light.
up to the light?
The light,
Could there be-
to get into a Lifetime, that entry to the,
An acceleration. It's possible, yeah, it's possible.
I don't know if IDOT would go for that.
Yeah.
aren't you thinking, yeah,
Because of the merging at the stoplight.
That's probably
have the
true.
car
If it's only
then coming out
500 or
from the front
700
end.
feet away, it isn't gonna make any difference.
They're not going to go for that.
No, it was just a thought.
They'd rather slow the traffic behind the truck and then approach the stoplight.
yeah. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I note, you're also seeking a small variance of 6 parking spaces based upon the assumptions provided in the staff from 207 to 201. And then I also note that we have provided notices and no comments were received, correct?
Correct.
We also have the section 18.3 elements from the zoning code provided by the petitioner as well. Any other questions by the commission? Okay, this is, Jim?
Do we have any other, I have a small concern with this as far as the parking and that. I currently work in a facility that's in a building, a company that's in a building similar to this but smaller. We occupy 30,000 square foot of that building. We have 60 people with cars. Now this is, if we had the other tenant on the opposite side who has a mirror facility to ours, if they had 60 people, we'd fill up the parking lot. Unfortunately, they only have 5 people. So that works out in our building, and I just have a concern here that if something like our business came in here and took 2 or 3 of these, you're short of parking. Do we have any experience in the village with other,
Is this, are you in an office warehouse type building
a
or,
building similar?
or office? Is it, is
Similar to this.
with warehouse
Yeah,
and?
it's mostly warehouse.
Okay. I'm not, and you have, how much square foot space for?
It's 78,000 square foot, the total building.
Okay, and how much is office and how much is warehouse?
Ours is the one that's mostly office. Ours is probably a third office, 2/3 warehouse.
Right, okay. If they had a situation that moved beyond the assumptions we use to calculate parking, and at this point, because it's a spec building, and they don't know who the users are, they don't know for each tenant the size of the office space versus the size of the warehouse space, we could only make that assumption. If they were to bring tenants into this building that moved beyond our assumptions, in other words, they had more office space than was anticipated, they'd be back before the Planning and Zoning Commission for reconsideration of what you're considering tonight.
But what could we do at that point?
Well, you would look at that particular, they'd have let's say they have a tenant that comes in, but they have 15, and it's a single tenant, okay? But they have 20% office rather than 5%, which was the assumption. So they wouldn't comply with what the variation, what would be granted as part of this approval. So they'd have to come back and request an amendment to that because they have 20% office, which is a higher parking demand for an additional variation. That would be the only thing they can do.
And I think what we'd have to do at that point is we'd have to look at it as an individual case. So, and maybe I think what we would ultimately do is look at it and its influence upon the entire structure. So, I think it's gonna be what the presumption is of 5% office overall as a starting point.
What is the ordinance require, 207?
Yeah.
And they're requesting 200 and,
One.
I think if it was 207 and they were requesting 107, it would be a different story.
Yeah,
And you're right, this could be anything. Who knows? We could have a contact center move in there and we could have 2,000 people working in there. The likelihood of an office going in this facility, I would be willing to bet is extremely low.
Right.
Based on office space that's available everywhere else and what this layout is designed for. Actually, if it is some type of distribution center, you won't even use 100 of those spaces because of the way that
Right.
these things are run
We
today.
we usually shoot for about one spot per 1,000 foot of building, so 165,000 of building, 165 spots, kind of our
I think
number.
variances is minimal and
Yeah, it's all guesswork at this time. But, believe me, we wouldn't build a building that we thought was underparked, because then we can't lease it. So, we're, it's guessing, but we've got a lot of history on these things, and, I feel the 200 is very adequate for this type of users we're gonna see.
I agree.
I hope. We'll see.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing, and this would be the opportunity for anyone from the public to comment with respect to what is under consideration by the commission this evening, which is the amendment and change of the zoning classification, the amendment to the special use, the variations as it relates to parking and the signs, and then site plan, architecture plan, landscape plan, final and preliminary, as well as plat of subdivision. Okay. Seeing no one rushing once again to the podium for this one, we will close the public comment section. Any other comments by the commission? Let me just say from my standpoint, I like the way the building looks. I like that it is finally a use for this property that seems to fit, because we've seen and heard about lots that don't. So I think that's, very positive. I also like that it seems to complement the buildings to the west, which I guess are its brothers or sisters, whatever you call buildings. I do have a concern about the right-in, right-out, and the visibility from Milwaukee Avenue. So that still is a point with me. But otherwise, I think it looks really nice. In terms of the subdivision, Mike, what we're doing is we're combining the two to create this bigger one, but then we're going to have two lots at the end of the day. One is detention, one is building and parking, right?
that's correct.
Okay. Anybody else? Any comments, thoughts? Okay. If not, based upon a very sage recommendation from Commissioner Hesner, that we should probably look at subdivision first, because why approve everything if we're not going to subdivide it first? So our first motion would be to recommend approval of the preliminary and final plat of subdivision subject to the conditions referenced in the staff report, which are 11 conditions, adding as condition 12, reevaluation and greater, I think it was called architectural articulation on the southeast elevation. And then 13, revising the sign from up to 2 tenants to up to 6 tenants on each of the 2 signs. Okay. Any second for that, or did I miss anything else?
On item number 12, can we say between column lines 10 and 13?
Sure, because I would never have known that, right.
We could do that.
Okay, got that? All right, now we need a second. Second. Any discussion? And this is just the plat of, the final plat of subdivision.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need a roll call?
Who's the second? You?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was.
Mark.
Sorry, bear with me.
Yep.
Commissioners Cotton,
Yes.
Hesner,
Yes.
Heidner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes.
Commissioner Morris.
Yes. Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval to amend the zoning classification from B1 General Business to BP Business Park on the legally described property formerly known as the Forge Club, subject to the conditions of approval referenced herein. Before I ask for a second, is the rest of it BP, I assume?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we just need the Forge Club portion.
Correct.
Okay. Then we need, that is subject to the 13 conditions of approval that we've just articulated, and we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Hesner,
Yes.
Heidner.
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay, next we have a motion to recommend approval to amend ordinance 2020-85, authorizing revisions to a special use permit for a planned unit development allowing the construction of a light industrial building on the legally described property, subject to the conditions of approval, which we've just referenced. And we need a second for that.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Heidner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Hesner.
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval to grant certain variations relating to the zoning ordinance and sign code, and subject to conditions of approval referenced herein, with the revision that it's up to 6 tenants on the signs.
Got it.
Okay, we need a second for that.
Second. No,
Go ahead.
you can,
Rock, paper, scissors.
yeah, get, whatever.
Either way.
Okay, we need a roll call for that. Oh, any discussion first? I'm sorry. Then we need a roll call.
Commissioners Hesner,
Yes.
Heidner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay. For reasons that will become evident in a moment, I'm going to do something out of order. This would be a motion to recommend preliminary and final architectural plan approval, which is number 5 in our packet, subject to the conditions of approval referenced herein that we've already discussed. And we need a second for that. Or, okay, any discussion on architecture? Okay, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Hesner,
Yes.
Heidner,
Yes.
Mulcrone.
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary and final site plan, subject to the conditions that we've previously referenced this evening. We need a second for that.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I just think it's a bad idea for our village to allow a right-in, right-out on Milwaukee.
Anything else?
I think that argument definitely needs to move forward to the village board so that they can understand that it was a concern of ours. And let them, bat it around.
Would we want to separately vote on a narrow question as to whether we would recommend a write-in, write-out onto Milwaukee? So we don't intermix it with anything else that might be in the final site plan and the final landscape plan?
Sure,
I think that's a good idea.
sure. Yeah, why not?
All right, so, is it a motion or is it a,
It would be,
I guess it'd be a motion at a condition of approval.
it'd be a motion for approval for the right in, right out, and then it would be
Yes.
our response.
Right, okay, so we'd have a motion to recommend approval of a right-in, right-out from the site onto Milwaukee Avenue.
Before we say
Yes.
that, because it's not a right-in.
It is.
How about recommend approval of a three-quarter access, because that's what's
Okay.
being presented?
Okay,
Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's correct. So just so I know.
oh wait, maybe it's even simpler. Maybe it's just to recommend approval of access onto Milwaukee Avenue.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Okay.
Is that really what,
I don't think so, because they've provided a clear approach, and it's an approach that is either going to be approved as is or modified by IDOT.
right?
Okay. I agree. Have it be the way it's.
So we'll do it as the three-quarters. This is a motion to recommend approval of a three-quarter access point from the property onto Milwaukee Avenue. Okay, so we need a second for that?
Second.
Okay, because the way it's being phrased, if one votes in the affirmative, that means you're voting in favor of a three-quarter
Okay.
access onto Milwaukee. If you vote against it, you're voting not in favor of a three-quarter
Thank you
access.
for the clarification.
Okay, just so we're all clear. Okay, now any discussion? Or have we discussed it? Okay, now we need a roll
My
call.
only
Jim?
comment is that I still think the truck access going south is going to be a problem. And that's my concern with it. Otherwise, I would not vote against the three access points.
Got it. Okay,
Okay.
okay, so we need a roll call. Like,
Commissioners Heidner,
No.
Commissioner Mulchrone,
No.
Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton,
No.
Hesner,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
no. Okay.
Rest of the site plan.
We're at the site plan, but I got to think, okay, so we have a motion to recommend preliminary and final site plan approval, subject to the 13 conditions in the staff report and as articulated this evening. And we need a second for that.
Second.
Just so we're clear here, I'm not prejudging anybody. If anyone votes no on this, it would make sense for guidance to the village board to indicate in some summary fashion the basis, whether it ties to our prior motion or if it's some other issue with the site plan. So we don't intermix everything, and we
Can we
understand.
just take the three-quarter turn out of it?
We
'Cause
just
we've-
did.
All right, but if someone were to vote no for this because of the turn,
They're
It
two
wouldn't-
separate things now.
that's what I'm asking.
Right.
So basically, are you saying that we are voting for the approval of the site plan with,
Exclude.
by excluding approval or disapproval of the three-quarter access?
Correct.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, and the motion will be so noted in your report and recommendation to the village board.
Yep, but if someone says no, we should probably see what else is wrong with the site plan, so to speak, if wrong is the right word. Okay, so we're voting really with effectively a 14th condition, and the condition is no three-quarter access point. Okay?
We've already voted on that.
Right, yeah. Okay,
So that's no, and if I can just make sure, this motion is on the site plan, not including the three-quarter access to Milwaukee. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Right.
So everything else but that.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need a roll call.
Commissioners Hesner,
Yes.
Heidner,
Yes.
Mulchrone.
Yes.
Gorig.
Yes.
Cotton.
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay, and then finally, we have a motion to recommend preliminary and final landscape plan approval, subject to the conditions that we have discussed previously and in our staff report. We need a second for that.
Second.
Now, the landscape plan obviously contemplates, the way we're looking at it, a access point onto Milwaukee Avenue. So once again, for clarification, are we voting on this without reference to that? portion.
I think we can rely on the zoning code, which requires a 25-foot landscape buffer between Milwaukee and the drive aisle in this case. So if ultimately that access to Milwaukee wasn't approved, we'd fall back to the zoning requirements and just have them continue that landscape buffer all the way through.
Right,
That's good.
okay.
And really, the only condition that I wanted to add is take a closer look at the landscaping on top of that berm, separating the pool from the building, and extending it the full length of the area that's open to the pool deck, to the building.
So you're saying make it longer east to west?
Correct.
This way, yeah. Okay.
If the right in, right now, three-quarter is not approved, would we ask for additional landscaping to buffer the view to the loading docks?
I think it probably would inherently.
Yeah, I
so,
think we've
yeah.
got that condition just added to landscaping. Then we have the zoning code requiring the landscape buffer. So if the excess wasn't put in, yeah, I think we have enough to where we can make sure we take advantage of that and get improved landscape, I'm sorry, improved screening.
Okay. All right. So if that's not, do we get a second on that?
I think
did.
Morg.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's not confusing enough, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Cotton,
Yes.
Hesner.
Yes.
Heidner.
Yes.
Mulcrone.
Yes.
Gorig.
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay, I think that's it. And this goes to the village board. Thank you very
I'll
much.
call you tomorrow, John.
21 years.
All right. And last on this evening's agenda of public hearings, we have case 21-04, which seeks approval of a special use permit to allow a public utility structure to be known as the White Deer Run Water Reservoir, certain variations relating to the zoning ordinance, preliminary and final site plan, and preliminary and final architectural elevations. This location is 240 West Greggs Parkway. It is east of the White Deer Run Maintenance Building and north of the EJ&E Railroad tracks. With that, who's going to speak on behalf of the petitioner on this one?
Austin McFarland, Interim Director for Lake County Public Works, and Mr. William Rickert from RHMG.
Okay, so we ask whoever's going to speak.
And-
Oh,
Come on up.
Oh,
Swear him in too.
okay.
okay,
And because I have an interest in this and I cannot vote objectively, I have to recuse myself.
fair enough. All right, we'd ask whoever's going to give testimony to raise their right hand, to swear or affirm that this testimony you're about to give before this commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth.
Yes.
Okay, as you probably heard, the primary rule is that you have to speak from a microphone. Beyond that, we don't have many.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, good evening, I should say, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. As I indicated, I'm Austin McFarland, the Interim Director with Lake County Public Works, and we are grateful to come before you tonight to have a discussion on this reservoir that we're open to construct and to provide as much resource and water for the village. And so with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bill to go through this with your staff.
Thank you, Austin. Good evening, everybody. As Austin mentioned, I'm Bill Rickert with RHMG Engineers. We've been working with Lake County Public Works for the last several years, helping them with regards to additional water storage for their Vernon Hills water system. The first task that we had, we performed a study to identify how much additional water storage was required for the system. And the conclusion was that at this point in time, an additional 2 million gallon reservoir was required. In hindsight, that was the easy part. The challenge was finding a site that was suitable and acceptable. It met the needs of the county in terms of operating and functioning within the water system, and also would be acceptable to adjacent property owners and to the village. So after investigating multiple sites and encountering issues, We believe we've identified a site now. A site has been identified with the assistance of the village that is an extremely good fit. So we're really happy to have gotten to this point. And as was noted in the introduction, the site is in Greg's Landing. It's the old former Village of Mundelein wastewater treatment plant site. So it's kind of this triangular site. It's a 5.45 acre site. It's bounded on the north by the driving range for White Deer Run. On the east, there's the EJ&E Railroad and then some vacant undevelopable land. To the south, also the EJ&E. South of that is the Vernon Hills Park District Maintenance Facility, Century Park, and the Century Park condominiums. On the west side, immediately we have the White Deer Run Golf Course Maintenance Building. West of that is a detention pond. And then you have the rear yards of these residences on the end of the cul-de-sac of Congressional Court. The site, and you'll see in some subsequent slides, is extremely well buffered already, and that really contributes to it being a great site for this facility. I'll go to the next slide. Is it?
There's a, oh, that worked.
Okay. So this slide shows the proposed layout of the facilities. We've, based on what was here previously, most of the structures for that treatment plant were more in the central and eastern part of the site. The western part of the site was primarily sludge drying beds and then some open area. So we've kept the facilities, the proposed reservoir and pump station on the western portion of the site to try to avoid being impacted by remnants of the concrete structures and foundations for the treatment plant. So the primary, the reservoir itself will be a 100-foot diameter circular precast, pre-stressed concrete tank with a dome roof. The sidewall height of the reservoir is proposed to be 35 feet. There will be berming around the bottom 4 feet, so there'll be a 31-foot exposed wall. And then the dome, the top of the dome will be another 10 feet above that. The pump station is approximately 50 by 60 foot rectangular masonry building, and it's located to the south of the reservoir. On the site, the access will be this extension of this existing access drive to the golf course maintenance building will be extended onto the site and then directed south to the pump station building. There's an existing 12-inch water main that runs north-south along the west boundary of the property. So that makes it very convenient for connection of the pump station and reservoir to the water system. So it works out really great to have that close access to a large diameter transmission main. And then there's also an existing sanitary sewer that runs along the south portion of the driving range. And so the sanitary sewer from the pump station, which will have floor drains and will have a restroom in it, will be connected at that point. The county is proposing to purchase the entire 5.45 acre site from the Village of Mundelein. And as part of that, we'll also grant easements to the Village of Mundelein for the existing interceptor sewer It's a 54-inch diameter interceptor sewer that runs across, first along the north, then cuts across to the south, and then parallels the tracks on its way to the new treatment plant along the river. And they will also be granting an access easement to the village of Mundelein. There's an existing gravel access drive that Mundelein uses to access the manholes and structures on that interceptor sewer. So that's a kind of a quick overview. Well, one thing I should point out, I guess two things. As you know, we are requesting two variations. The first one is for the front yard setback. Because we are pushing everything to the west to avoid the impact of these, the remnants of that treatment plant, we have a 25-foot setback from the west property line, which is the front lot in this case. So that's a variation from the 60-foot requirement. And then because the site is, as Earl will show you in a few minutes, already very well buffered, we're requesting a variation from the requirement for a landscape buffer. So I'll turn it over to Earl Welton from the Hesner Corporation to talk about the buffering and the architectural renderings. Earl?
Hello, like you said, my name is Earl. I'm with the Hesner Corporation. We've been helping to work on the architectural elements of this project. This is the architectural site plan. One thing will note real quick on here is, which one gives me my mouse? Okay. Right up in here, we do have a light standard. That's just to light this path here for when trucks come in at night for maintenance. And the building itself has 4 wall packs on it. I believe per the photometric put, by the time you get to about here, you're at 0 light levels, so we shouldn't interfere with anybody else. These are some renderings that we put together that kind of represent the area that we're looking at. This is view 1. This is an approximation of what the view would be if you were sitting at the golf course clubhouse and looking out across the driving range at this facility. That's about 1,000 feet away from where our facility is located. All sides of this facility or this site are pretty well buffered with existing trees, the hackberry, all the existing vegetation that's in place. It's all pretty mature. It's been there a long time, and it's fairly deep, between 20 and 40 feet in depth. So in the summertime, you have pretty much 0 visibility through it. View number 2 down here, that would be if you were shooting from the driving range itself. This building here is actually the park maintenance building that you see, which hides a large degree of the project we're working on. View number 3 here, that would be from the 2nd floor window of the houses in the, I believe it's the Pine Valley subdivision there. And within this area, so anywhere within that subdivision off of that cul-de-sac, your view would be pretty much the existing maintenance building. You barely can tell that even the tallest piece of the building, of the water tank is there.
Is that the existing maintenance building for the golf course?
Yes.
What's the height of that building?
The golf course currently is approximately 24 to 26 feet tall. It's also, its grade level is between 4 and 8 feet above the grade level of where our buildings are going. So you got 24 feet plus another 6 feet, let's call it, to what is my finished floor of the pump building.
Okay.
This view number 4 down here, that would be from the 2nd floor apartments, from the Century Park Apartments off of Indianwood Drive. And again, you can kind of see up across the maintenance yard, but there's still plenty of vegetation to block the view. And this is actually from the this is set to be from the 3rd floor.
And that's the Park District maintenance, yeah,
This is the Vernon Hills Park District Maintenance Building. And the view 4 is the 5 actually, is the park maintenance building from the furthest east apartment from that Century Park Apartments. And then view 5 or 6, the last one. That is a view from essentially if you walked out of the pavilion, from Century Park Pavilion, that would be the closest. This is the closest you had up to an actual line of sight view of this building. And the vegetation is still pretty high. From this point, the railroad itself is approximately 6 to 8 feet above the grade. So you're gonna have the railroad itself blocking a lot of it.
I walk that every day, and I never knew you could, by the maintenance facility, I never really looked over the tracks, because
Right.
they're up.
They're up
really-
pretty high, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So the only reason you can even hint at it is because that is 40 feet and, you know, it's about 20 feet higher than that. But it's also set back a good 50 to 60 feet from the property line. These are some general renderings. Our idea with this building, with the color scheme on both buildings, is to match the existing color scheme of the existing water towers that have been established within Vernon Hills. So the water tower by Northfield Block, the water tower off of Hawthorne by your Public Works facility, those have been changed to this lighter colored top with a brown colored base. So what we're proposing is that the tank itself be painted accordingly. It's basically it's like a shotcrete over the outside, so you don't see any of the seams of the precast, and it would have the same coloration as the tops.
Just out of curiosity, is this color chosen because it's a lighter color and will stay cooler, or is it just a color and it doesn't matter what it would be?
I couldn't tell you where the colors came from. This is just the colors that were established within the village for the Lake County water towers.
Yeah, I know our water towers all kind of look like this. I was just wondering, is it an opportunity for this to be green in a manner that it would sort of blend in with all the trees? It's a thought. I just didn't know if this was a specific color because I know darker colors absorb heat and all that other stuff.
I can probably speak to that. It's a good question, but with the volumes of water that we're talking about, the color of the tank really doesn't affect the temperature.
Okay, that's perfect. I mean, if it's something that we can make it blend in.
On the pump building itself, we're actually using, it's a masonry building. We're using a product called Insultech. It's a one block that also covers your inside block, the insulation values, your air barrier, and the outside face. And we're using an Echelon. They've partnered with Echelon Masonry for the exterior, and we're using the Echelon Masonry. One's called white for the top, and then the other one's called dark wood for the bottom. Once you apply the waterproofing or the block sealer, it's very, very close to the actual colors that have been chosen by. And they come, there's a limited range within colors you can go, so we worked out so that we got as close as we could. The building itself is not that big. Like you said, it's 50 by 60, plus or minus 20 to 24 feet tall, depending upon how the interior mechanics have to work out for the equipment within inside. Our doors are to the south of the building, and then with just vents on the sides for the different things that are within the building. The floor plan that we put together kind of gives you a basic idea of what the building is. It's a utilitarian building. It's not meant to be occupied at any point in time. We have a space for the generator. We have space for the electrical room. We have a space for the sprinkler because the village requires this facility to be sprinklered. The bathroom is just for when maintenance is going on, so they have a place to use. Storage, and then the majority of the space is just for the pumps and the equipment and the motors and things that are needed to make the facility work.
How often would this building be accessed? Like, would they be driving down the access drive?
I couldn't tell you for sure.
Also for reservoirs are checked at least daily by staff.
But not during the day, not in the evening?
It can vary, depends on what problems they're having. So if you're having a problem at night, they're there. Our staff, our operations is 24/7. So if we're having a problem there, these guys are going to be there.
Okay. But if there's not a problem, it would just be,
Correct, it'll just be for a daily inspection.
And I believe the off-site monitoring of the facility, so like that's why there's nobody that's actually permanently stationed at this location. And that's our presentation on this.
As far as the vegetation that you're showing in your diagrams, you're depicting here, are all these deciduous trees versus conifers?
No, these are mostly coniferous, well, a little bit of everything, but they're so dense that even in the winter, you can't really see through them. Because it's more, it's not a planned, it's just organically created itself over time.
So this is existing.
This is all existing. On all four sides of this facility, it's all existing vegetation, and it's at least 20, 30 feet tall as existing trees, buckthorn, and it's very dense.
I would refer to it as a thicket, I think is what you would identify with.
What do you think of the idea of making this a different color? So it did blend in with the
You know, I'm the
landscape.
one that suggested that, and I thought about something that, then you realize in winter, we're gonna have this giant green thing sticking
Well,
out
he
of the
said it
snow.
was
But I'm just saying,
not necessarily, there's some conifers in there that
yeah,
aren't gonna change.
oh, that's true.
Well, the advantage of sticking with the colors as we have is that they will always have those colors throughout their entire maintenance program.
You guys don't really care, it's a village thing as to what the color would be, I would assume.
Most likely,
Yeah.
yes.
They confer with the
Color
village.
scheme is more,
Yeah, I believe the idea was to stay with the other towers and the color and just keep everything the same.
So they'll all stay ugly. Oh, wait.
I believe, no, my view is a little different. I think it looks great.
a lighter color when it deteriorates is not as evident as a darker color when that goes.
Use better paint.
He's the paint guy.
This is always referred to historically as the Village of Mundelein Waste Treatment Plant. Who actually owns it today?
Today, as we're standing here, the village of Mundelein owns it.
If the Village of Mundelein owns it, and they're not a petitioner, this, can we do anything yet?
Yeah, we have documentation where Mundelein grants permission to Lake County to be the petitioner.
Oh, we do?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Okay, any other questions, anybody?
This isn't a question, it's just a comment that I think this is really the perfect location. So,
Thank you. The village staff was instrumental in helping to identify this site, so we have to give credit to them.
Did they pick the color too?
No comment.
Okay.
You mentioned somewhere in there, I believe, that you're going to fence your area?
It's already fenced,
It's already fenced?
Yes.
From Mundelein?
yes.
Okay. So you're not doing anything in regards to that, you're just maintaining what they had?
We'll be installing a new, larger automated gate, entry gate, but the rest of the
Is
fence
that
will,
further on down the road than?
where the access point was shown, and there may be some adjustment to the location of that access point, north-south, during final design, to try to not impact as much vegetation on the north end there.
So where is the fencing going on this? If you can kind of like,
fencing currently exists right along like this. Goes all, this
Yeah.
dashed line right here,
well, that's.
That's the
okay.
fence.
that's the existing fence. I believe it's a 6-foot fence too, I think, chain link fence.
Right.
Is, I don't know this, but in the world we live in, is the fencing that would be appropriate for a waste treatment facility the same as the fencing to protect a water facility that provides potable water to the community? Or do you have other sorts of security and otherwise concerns that need to be addressed? Maybe that's more Lake County's question.
Yeah. I'll let Austin chime in, but basically the same, and, I mean, the building is a secure building, and then the site, the fencing is kind of redundant, additional barrier of protection for keeping, it's really keeping vandals out.
And that's correct. If you notice, most of our other reservoirs that we have in Vernon Hills, it's pretty much the same type of fencing, no specialized type of fencing is used for those. We do have security on the building itself and alarms, so it's just for vandalism that we're using these fences for now.
And when you say the building, you mean the building and the reservoir?
The reservoir and the building as well.
Okay.
Does the exterior ladder on the reservoir have the gate so no one can get up on it?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
We used to always get comments from the police and the fire department. Did the police department express any concerns about security for this type of facility at ground level where it's kind of all by itself and you wouldn't really notice people if they were mischievous?
Yeah, they are included as part of the technical review process. They did not comment on that.
Okay.
Do you have security cameras on the outside?
The plan is to, right now, we're going to a risk and resilience evaluation of all of our sites. And I believe that's one of the recommendations to get that in all of our facilities. So that's down the road.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay. I note that notices went to surrounding property owners, and according to our packet, we received no comments. Still nothing?
No comment.
Okay, and then we also have a copy of the petitioner's responses to the section 18.3 elements in the zoning code. And at this point, since this is a public hearing, this is the opportunity for any member of the public to provide any commentary or testimony with respect to the request being made by the Lake County, what is it called, Department of Public Works, which we note for the record has been authorized by the current property owner of the Village of Mundelein to make the petition. Please, if you could identify yourself and where you are.
Yes, for the record, my name is Kevin Borgard. I live at 1871 Turtle Bay in Greg's Landing. I'm also the president of the Homeowners Association there. Dave Brown was the first one that filled me in on this a number of months ago. I've gone over all the details at our board meetings, and there really wasn't any concern or whatever, because it's mostly behind the maintenance facility. One question, I think they might have answered it, was that the many people hike and bike back there. There's the trail there that right now Mundelein uses, I guess. And I guess the only request I have is that that be maintained, because many people do use that. I don't know if you're planning on doing that or not.
You're referring to the gravel access?
Yes.
Road, yeah, that'll stay.
Okay, I think it's a good use for that. I don't know what else you would put there.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we can close the public hearing portion of this meeting then. Any other comments by the commission?
I just think it's well screened naturally and effectively also by the existing structure for the golf course.
I think it's a great fit, yeah.
This special use also runs with the current owner, being Lake County Public Works?
The special use will run with the property, so yeah, and ultimately,
So it'll run with the property?
Correct.
If they sell out to some private company,
then
goes to them.
the water reservoir can remain. It would be permitted still.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then we have a motion to recommend approval of a special use permit to allow public utility structures on the parcel we've been discussing, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff packet, which are conditions 1 and 2. And we need a second for that.
Second.
Any discussion on the special use approval? If not, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Heidner,
yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes,
Cotton,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval to grant certain variations relating to the zoning ordinance as listed in Exhibit A. Those are allowing a front yard setback of 25 feet in lieu of the minimum number of 60 feet, and the front yard is considered to be the western portion of the site, and waiving the requirement of a fully landscaped 4-foot-tall berm abutting the residential district, which is north of the railroad. We need a second for that.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Heidner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Next, we have a motion to recommend preliminary and final site plan approval, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff packet. We need a second for that.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Cotton,
Yes.
Heidner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. You want to pursue your caller?
No.
Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend preliminary and final architectural elevation approval, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff packet. And we need a second for that.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just make the comment that maybe they should consider a different color.
Oh, then that's fine, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to speak over you.
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Heidner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. All right. Is that it? Okay,
That's it.
thank you.
Gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much.
Okay. And actually, for the record, I misspoke. There's 6 conditions of compliance, not,
I was wondering.
I didn't turn the page, not 2. Okay. All right. Next, we have on our agenda any development review to discuss this evening?
Yeah, just one, the former Carson Palmer building was sold to Antilia Scientific, and they're going to expand their campus to the south. They're going to purchase a property that has frontage on Lakeview Parkway, not directly across the street from the high school, but going east. And they're going to build another building there with room for expansion then, if they ever need to in the future, for the new building and the existing building. And they produce, pumps and hoses and things relative to fluids in connection with medical practices. That's a very layman's term to describe what they're manufacturing. Yeah,
Right.
So is it more of an office, light industrial, or is it? Yeah.
office light industrial, right. And really, that's it. I mean, we're also talking to a KinderCare up in the shops at Greg's Landing. We've been talking for a long time about Pet Suites where the old Bally's is. That's still alive. They're just moving slow. And that's really about it. We're hoping as we move farther past COVID, we could start getting some updates from Hawthorne regarding some nice restaurants on some of those outlots along
Yeah,
Milwaukee
that's why I
Avenue.
was asking that question.
And you'll see every one of those individually as they come in. Yeah. They only have final approval on
What did his
plats.
comment, what did his comment mean that he was, as long as it was consistent with their philosophy or whatever, what did he say?
They're marketing higher quality restaurant. You're not gonna see a fast food restaurant
They
there.
had talked about a high-end steak restaurant whose name I don't remember. There's one in Naperville.
Which one?
No, it wasn't Morton's.
Paris. Paris.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty good.
I've never heard of that one.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it'd be great to get something like that.
Yeah, and they're still working, and that's still alive.
Oh,
You know,
good.
'cause- yeah. There's a fish restaurant too, a higher end fish restaurant.
nice.
That one's coming back alive too. The COVID pandemic just slowed all that down. I think you would have seen it by now.
Well, and the good news is everybody wants to go out to eat now, so let's build these suckers.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Agreed. And that's about it
Just don't
for.
overbuild.
Yeah, no, we're not overbuild, but yeah, let's,
Does Binny's have a date yet to open?
Benny's is waiting on their shelving.
oh, no.
And there's a problem
So
getting
it's-
it manufactured, and it's COVID related, and the liquor barn didn't have that same problem, and they're just, they're very frustrated,
Amazing the
obviously.
stuff we can't get.
Yeah.
You'd
Yeah.
never imagine it.
Sure. Okay, next we have I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you want to?
You're good?
I just wanted to say something at the end.
Oh, okay. Next, we have the approval of the minutes of the May 19th, 2021 meeting, which is in our packet. Any comments to those? If not, we have a motion to recommend approval. We need a second.
I'll second.
And we did by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on the record or off when we're done?
On the record.
Okay. Yes?
So, recently, houses started construction in front of the Cuneo along Milwaukee, and now you can no longer see the Cuneo mansion from Milwaukee. And it was just a sad, because I had voted against that portion there, and I think it's just a sad turn of events that that mansion is now completely hidden from anybody who else, except if they live in there.
I think that whole development is sad in that it changed the dynamics and what was special with the Cuneo property. The place is still it's great, but it was something that was really, truly special.
There's one saving grace. I don't disagree with any of those comments, by the way, because I think the Cuneo Mansion it really is special. And the one saving grace was that a condition of approval, there was an agreement worked out that included Lake County, where, I'm going to get the number wrong, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 and 2 million was set aside, used solely for upgrading certain elements of the mansion, like the skylight.
Yeah.
All right.
Certain electrical features, and so on and so forth. That's the one shining light, if that makes you feel any better.
Have they done any of that?
They haven't done the skylight light yet. They've done a lot of extensive electrical work on the elevator, and things like that. The skylight, I think, is the most important thing, because we need to protect the
The
structure.
leaks, yeah.
What also happened to the gate along Milwaukee? It looks like they tore half of it out. The original Cuneo gate.
They did, and I don't have a good update for you tonight. Yeah. There's a long story behind that, because Cuneo at one point Loyola University, that owns the property, wanted to be able to reinstall a new fence that would be adjacent to the residential. And ultimately, they decided not to do that. Now, what's going on with that gate, though, that I just don't have an answer for you.
Is that property, and I should know this, is it museum, is it educational, is it?
Yes, it's that, and at some point, they did an addition that could be used as a banquet facility. They took down the indoor pool and put it in a kitchen and, dining area.
Yeah, we've had something there, it's a great place for
Yeah.
having 250 people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There's nothing else? Okay.
To follow up on something we talked about last time, that pothole in front of Sam's. And you said the association no longer exists that was maintaining it?
Yeah, what's going on in our
Can that happen elsewhere in the village?
this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this, but there is that entrance magazine near Northwestern, and then also not only that east-west entrance magazine, but a portion of the north-south interior drive was maintained for years by the Marketplace Association. They dissolved, they no longer exist, and there's nothing on record that'll indicate who is responsible for the maintenance of it. So our village attorney has been working with Kohl's and with Sam's Club, because they're the ones that most benefit from that entrance. He's got agreement with Kohl's, he's still working with Sam's Club, just trying to get them to come up with an agreement where they split the cost to maintain it. And this has been going on for months,
So who maintains the other access drive to the marketplace?
I don't know. Someone's doing a good job maintaining it, I don't know.
Do we have the same possibility that something could happen there?
I don't know, we haven't had an issue there, so I haven't had an opportunity to dig in or work with the village attorney to figure out who is maintaining it.
How did we approve that?
So I can't answer the question, I don't know. And you could apply that to.
Pothole on the way out.
Yeah, and you could apply it to so many shopping centers. And I've just never seen anything like this, where the association dissolves, and there really is, no matter how much research we do to try to figure out through recorded documents who's responsible to maintain it, there's no one responsible to maintain it. So it's
Does
the
that
first.
include the parking lots?
No, it's just the entrance magazine.
Okay.
And a portion of the north-south interior drive.
Okay,
So,
that's bizarre.
yeah, and it's, whatever.
And you don't know if we have other examples of that in the village?
No, I mean, we haven't run, it's, like I said, I haven't run across this kind of issue in Vernon Hills or any other community that I've worked for. It's very unique. It seems like that there never was an agreement in place. It was missed along the way as that developed, right? And the association, because they were in place, just covered it and took care of it, When they dissolve, then there's no one left to coordinate the maintenance of it. And when we can't identify through a recorded document who is responsible for it, and then hold them responsible to, fill the potholes. They also need to redo their markings. You can't see any of the turn lanes or anything anymore. So it's, the village attorney's working at it, and hopefully we'll get it resolved soon. I've never seen anything like it.
The Wild West.
Yep.
I had a question about Home Depot, how they have a lot of plants, they have all the grills, they have so much in the parking lot and in the walkway. Is that allowed? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
for years.
excessive this year.
Yeah, for years, it wasn't allowed, and I'm gonna say about 7 or 8 years ago, the village board amended the licensing portion of the ordinance, and there's a section in there that allows outdoor display and merchandise, of merchandise, but it requires that it stay on the sidewalk. They amended that code such that certain stores that are of a certain size, that have an existing garden center, could qualify to have it in the parking lot. It requires annual approval by the board. So every year, Lowe's and Home Depot have to come before the board, show what they're going to do, and ask for approval of it. And from time to time, the board remembers issues from the previous year and asks that they do stuff to improve upon that.
Well, the advantage with Home Depot is they have that massive parking lot, which
But they're
granted,
taking so much of it. They're taking, it's really excessive this year.
Be nice if they ran the
board
hose
approved it.
underground,
If they did, oh, I know.
so you don't have to drag your cart over it.
Yeah. The fire district is happy because before they were allowed to do that, they would tend to put it on the north side of the building. Excess landscape stock was stored behind the building. They were blocking fire lanes and hydrants, and so they're happy.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, we have a motion to adjourn. We need a second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We are adjourned. Good night.
So, congratulations, you moved down a seat.
I've been used to